Welcome. Let's begin a journey together to the very edge of what we think we know, to a place where the deepest mysteries of science seem to meet the most ancient questions of the soul. We're going to explore the quantum mirror. And to start, I want you to just consider a simple question. It's a question you've probably asked yourself in the quietest moments. Is this world around you, this solid, predictable reality, is it really what it seems to be? You see, it turns out that modern science itself has found a crack in the very foundation of that reality. A place where the world as we understand it, well, it just ceases to make sense. When we look at the quantum level, the realm of the truly, unimaginably small, all the solid rules we live by, they just seem to dissolve. Down there, things don't simply exist. They exist as a kind of haze of possibilities, a shimmering cloud of what could be. It's like a world that's waiting for a reason to become real. And this entire enigma, this mystery, is captured so perfectly in one single legendary experiment, one that truly challenges the nature of existence itself. The experiment setup, known as the Double-Slit experiment, is actually quite simple. Imagine we're firing tiny particles, let's say electrons, at a wall with two little slits in it. And on the other side, there's a screen that just records where each of those particles lands. Seems simple enough, right? But the pattern that shows up on that screen reveals something absolutely astonishing about the nature of our reality. And here is the mystery. When we just let the particles fly without looking at them, they don't behave like little tiny marbles at all. They act like waves. It's as if each particle passes through both slits at the very same time and then interferes with itself on the other side, creating this beautiful striped pattern on the screen. But, and this is the part that changes everything, the moment we put a little detector there to see which slit a particle actually goes through, the whole game changes. Suddenly they start behaving like perfectly normal particles, creating just two simple bands right behind the two slits. So let's be clear about what's happening. Something about the act of observation itself is fundamentally changing the physical outcome. Just let that sink in for a moment. The simple act of looking collapses that shimmering wave of possibilities into one single definite reality. Before we look, the particle is everywhere and nowhere at once. The moment we look, it's right there. It's almost as if the universe waits for us to pay attention before it decides to make up its mind. And this leads us to what is maybe the most profound question in all of science. A question that physicists have been wrestling with for a century now. How can our internal, subjective experience of consciousness have a direct effect on the external, physical world? Now that question, it can feel radical, even impossible from our normal worldview. But what if science is only just now arriving at a perspective that has existed for thousands of years? To explore that, we have to turn our gaze away from the laboratory and toward an ancient stream of wisdom. What if science isn't discovering something entirely new, but is actually rediscovering a truth that's been waiting for us all along, a truth that is reflected in a philosophy that is thousands of years old? This philosophy is called Vedanta. It comes from sacred texts in ancient India known as the Upanishads, and its central teaching really flips our normal perspective upside down. See, we usually think of consciousness as something the brain produces, but Vedanta says the exact opposite. Consciousness is the fundamental source from which the material world arises. So let's just watch for a moment and see how these two vast streams of thought, one from a modern physics lab, the other from ancient meditation, how they flow into the same startling ocean of truth. In the quantum world, we've found that a particle exists only in a state of potential, until an observer looks. And in that moment of looking, a single reality is chosen from an ocean of possibilities. Now, listen to the words of the ancient sages. For them, the world we see as solid and external is nothing more than a projection, an unfolding from a universal pure consciousness. It's the same idea, just described in two different languages. Quantum physics calls it collapsing the wave function. Vedanta calls it a projection from consciousness. But they are both describing the very same fundamental event. All of this points to a shared and profound truth, that reality isn't some fixed, solid thing out there. It's a field of potential, and our consciousness is the catalyst that brings it into form. We're not just separate observers looking at a universe. We are active participants in its continuous creation. Reality, it seems, is a relationship. And so we are left with this final, very personal reflection. If the fabric of reality itself responds to our awareness, if consciousness is indeed the creative force of the cosmos, then what world, right now, in this very moment, are you creating?